Hello and welcome to this week's episode on the Alchemy Lounge podcast. And I am joined by a wonderful guest today who is a fellow alchemist, and I am incredibly excited to have with us today. I have the lovely Jade Stoner. So Jade, would you love to introduce yourself to our beautiful listeners, please?
Oh, just really putting me on the spot there.
I know.
Hello, listeners. I'm Jade. I am a spiritual alchemist and intuitive guide. I work with founders, entrepreneurs, and public figures, and I really guide them through their own soul growth journey and getting to their next level of success in a way that doesn't feel like they're selling their soul.
I love this, and we are so aligned even without realizing it. So I'm really excited for this conversation because we have such alignment and synchronicities, which is always beautiful. So I'm going to start with soul growth because this is such a powerful phrase that I love, and obviously as someone who also works with soul coaching and connects to people on a soul level, I have my own feelings around it. But what does soul growth really mean for you?
That's a really great question. And in all honesty, it's something that I'm still trying to refine myself. So I can give you the big answer, but it's not a polished, in a square with a bow on top. So soul growth for me is really the journey that we go on. It's not the journey that we choose to go on. You'll find yourself that you've been guided to it. So usually people find themselves at the beginning of it through some kind of significant life experience. So for me, it was the end of a relationship and being a single parent and being made redundant. For some people, it might be a death in the family. It may be just having a complete, what feels like a breakdown. It's more of a breakthrough, but it's soul like breakdown. And it's really what's been designed by our souls before we came here, before we came to Earth as humans. And it's the lessons that we chose to experience to help us grow and expand and become the person who we are truly meant to be. So many of us are living lives that are some expectation of somebody else, or there's some I'm seeing a Lego set in my mind. Imagine building a Lego set, but you haven't built it quite in the right way. And we're living these ways and we're going through these motions of how we think we should be and who we think are, but really they're just adaptations and distortions of who we are that have been created by our life experiences, particularly our early life experiences, but all throughout any age. And so imagine if you're 25, that's going to be a lot less to clear than somebody who is 45, for example. And now here's where it starts to get a bit deep, is that it's not just this lifetime either. Most of us, it's not our first lifetime here. We've had multiple lifetimes. So we've come into this lifetime, not just with this life's karma, but also past life's karma to clear. And so this is something that I've delved into myself this year, is the ancestral piece and the generational piece. And I'm like, for fuck's sake, are you joking? As if I don't have enough to do myself. There's more. Yes, exactly. And when we look at that as women, what's really, really interesting, I'm just going to focus on the piece around money. The first or possibly the second generations that have been allowed to go out and create money. So if you're in a position where you find it quite challenging in the area of money, which by the way can also be a trigger for your soul growth, it's another portal to it. If you're finding it difficult and it's not happening as fast as the internet tells you that it can be or should be, do this thing, get rich in a month or 10 days, I'm making 300 trillion pounds a month. If that's not happening for you as quickly, there's nothing wrong with you. It probably means that you've got more to clear deep levels. So soul growth is really about the process of going through that and clearing it so that you can grow and become the person that you came here to be. And often we think it's about the things that we want. And I'm a material person and I love beautiful things. I'm just spiritual and bougie. That is me in a nutshell. And
I love that.
We think it's about having more money or more influence, you know, whatever the thing is for you. But actually, it's about so much more. And yeah, it's really the whole journey, and it's about who you become. That's where I was going. I lost my train of thought for a second now. We think it's about the things, it's about the person that you become. And where a lot of people trip themselves up is they want the thing. So for example, say, thinking of an example of a public figure, for example, let's say they want to sell more albums, or they want to go on a world tour or whatever, and it's not happening for them. They think it's because they need to do something. You know, they need to change a strategy. Maybe they need a new manager, or maybe they need a new record label, or they just need to sell more records, right? But actually, what they don't realize is that they need to become the person who has the energetic, the internal capacity to be able to hold that. Because with being on those bigger stages is going to come a lot more scrutiny towards you. And again, going back to your soul's not going to put you in that position. Your higher self is there to guide you and protect you. Your higher self is not going to put you in that position. Or if they do, understand there's a lesson to be learned. There's something for your soul growth, something that you need to release, clear, let go, and grow to expand, to be able to hold those bigger things. But a lot of people trip themselves up, and they think it's because they need something, some strategy, or they think this because it's not meant for them. Because here's what happens. When we're going through this, we come up against our own shadows, and things start to go wrong. And then you take it as, oh, this is not meant for me, or I must be doing something wrong. But actually, the way that I've seen it is you're in a birthing canal, and when you're in there, it's uncomfortable. And all of your shadows are going to come up. All of your limiting beliefs and perceptions about yourself, your ego is going to say, no, it's not for you. Maybe we should just go back. Maybe this, maybe that, you know, all of those doubts, that is you coming up against your edge. And most people, when they're in there, they retreat backwards, and that's why they never get ahead. The key is to grow and expand, to be able to hold all of things, and like a birthing canal, push through and birth into your next level. All of the challenges, they are initiations, they are portals for your next level. But it takes a lot of inner grit, and so you might loop around a few times before you get there. That's why we see people that are overnight success actually know they're not an overnight success. They've done 10 years of going through the shit, and they've finally mastered, pushed through, been birthed out, et voila.
Yeah, so true. And I think a lot of people listening will be like, I've been going through so many loops. Like, how many loops am I going to go through? But I love
my goodness,
spoke about the soul contracts and things. And, you know, I speak about this quite a lot, and it fascinates me. And, you know, we are here with a contract and a purpose. And apparently we've had a meeting before we came to Earth, and we agreed to this contract, which a lot of people are like, I don't think I was present for that meeting. I don't think I did agree to this.
Return to sender.
Yeah, can I have a different contract, please? Like, I'm not sure about this one. But I do love this notion, whether it is factual or not. I believe that it is, and I love it because it gives us that different perspective. When we are going through the shit, we can go, okay, but this is on my contract, and it is giving me something. It's a lesson or an initiation, like you say, and it's for a reason. And I love that you also mentioned about, you know, it's not just this lifetime. And it's so funny because I was talking about this the other day, and, you know, people are like, really? So it's not just, you know, my early childhood, like, limitations you want me to clear? It's generational. I'm like, yeah. And then historical, and then also past lifetime as well. So,
yeah,
sorry, but it's okay. It's a nice journey.
It sounds absolutely wild. And
yeah,
on a day like today, I can have a conversation like this and laugh about it. Let's not get it twisted. There are days that I cry about.
Oh yeah,
it's just like, how much more do you want from me? What person in their right mind signed up for this? And it can feel like that. And again, that's where a lot of people get lost. If we look at, you know, the masses, like society as a whole, it's then argued, well, why do some people make it and some don't?
Yeah.
Well, it's because the majority of people get lost in the victim frequency of, why is this happening to me? This is too much. I've already been through so much. And I get it. I've been through a hell of a lot. And like I said, it's only this year that I've been brought to the generational piece. And I was just having a moment, and I heard this years ago, actually. I was going through something and I just don't get it. And I heard a whisper that said, it's not your stuff. That was a couple of years ago. And then this year I was brought to a book, It Didn't Start With You. And I started exploring family constellation. I think it's called family constellation therapy. But that's where the generation piece comes in. But it's very easy to get lost in that victim frequency and then stay stuck there. And especially when so many other people are like that. But the reason that there are, you know, there's the handful that's not the masses, that they succeed, is just because they keep growing and moving through it. Now, not everybody is contracted to do things in the same way. You and I are in the roles we're in, and we probably have to do a little bit more work. Like, there's no shortcuts, there's no bypassing of stuff, because we have to experience it to be out, not just to heal ourselves and our own family lines, but also so that we can share it and have these kind of conversations that awaken and activate and empower other people. There are people that don't have to do like the depths of that work and get away with doing smaller parts, but that's because their path is different. So it is just about looking at the situations. And one of the most powerful questions that I was ever taught was, you know, what's the gift in this? Because it's all about perspective of stuff, right? You put two people through the same life experiences, one's going to grow from it and one's going to be held back by it. What's the difference? Well, it is the person and their character and all of those kind of things, but it's also the perspective, because one person chose to tune into victim frequency with it, and one person chose to say, what's the gift in this? What am I being taught from this? What's, you know, and taking that and rolling with it and allowing it to move them forward and not stay where they are.
Exactly. And that's so powerful, isn't it? Because we can get stuck in those spaces. I've certainly had parts of my life where I've been stuck in that kind of mode of like, why is this happening to me? And this is just really shit. And we know, why do bad things happen to good people? And we can get trapped in that space. For anyone listening who is in that space, what would you say to them? What would your best advice be to them to get them out of that trap?
I think probably first acknowledging it, like, and owning it. And you know what? I have been in that space, because once you own it, you take back your power with it, and you recognize, okay, if this is on me, if I'm like this, and if I created it, well, I can also uncreate it. And that can be a really bitter pill to swallow. There's areas of my life that I'm still working on, and sometimes it's annoying to hear as well, because you're like, what does that mean? And I think that's where a piece of faith comes in. And I'm guessing most of your listeners are on this same kind of frequency, in the same capacity, regardless of how deep they are in it. So this will resonate. It's just having that faith and that understanding that you're here for a reason. Everything is for your soul growth. And even though you don't get it in the moment, you will. And one thing I often share is, think back to a time in your life where you didn't understand why it was happening. I think back to ex-boyfriends, for example. You know, you couldn't understand why the relationship had ended. You know, you love them so much, you really want them back. Thank fucking God that they weren't brought back into my life. Like, that was a blessing in disguise, right? That is, and massively. It's taking the same understanding and it's putting it to this situation right now. Even though it's frustrating, even though it's uncomfortable, even though you feel like a victim, even though whatever it is, it's understanding that it's all part of the journey. And something else that really helps me and that I share is that this is only just one point, right? It's very easy to get zoomed in so far that you get stuck and you can't see anything else around you. But when we zoom out, and we look, this is just this part of my life. My current situation is not my final destination.
Yeah.
And you might, and again, you know, this is very dependent on what situation you're in and what we're applying it to. You may tell yourself that 2-3 times and be able to shift very quickly. You may tell yourself that 100 times a day. Write it down over and over, whatever it is, to get it into your psyche. And it's really about being committed to yourself in that way and keep up for you, no matter how long it takes. Another thing that's just come to me is, like, often we think, and this is ego thinking, that getting from A to B should only take a certain amount of time. And therefore, if it's gone past that time, you must be doing something wrong. It must be there's something not meant for you. And it's not that. It's just part of it, and there's something in that you need to learn. And it may take you a while to understand what that learning or that lesson is. But hold steadfast to the journey and you figure it out at some point.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that, because also time isn't even real. It's a man-made construct. So we can ignore time. I even say to people, you know, if you've got a goal and you've put like a time stamp on it, firstly, from like a manifestation perspective, I think therefore you're pushing that desire away, because you're saying it's going to take you that long, and it might not. But also, if you remove the time stamp on it, do you feel like you can achieve that in your lifetime? And most of the time that makes it ludicrously easy. And you go, of course I can. So I think that's something nice, just to remove the time element entirely, because it's just not real.
You know, there are many things we can do that with. I also acknowledge there are very real stuff that we can't remove a timeline from. And again, it's the same but different. It's still the trusting, understanding that it's all happening for your soul growth. There's something in it. Our spirit team, they're not mean. They feel mean sometimes. Might have a few words with them, but ultimately they're not being mean. And when you can really accept it and roll with it, it helps you. It's also helping your expansion, and it also helps you to realize that you're not alone. You're always guided. There is always, you know, a divine timing in everything. And sometimes that divine timing is just about alignment. And how you were just speaking about, you know, the goal piece. Time is an illusion. It doesn't exist. And it's often just about us. And this goes back to what I shared earlier. You just being the person who is a match for it. You having the capacity to be able to receive the thing. And that can happen so quickly. The slow way is usually when we're fighting it. Why? The victim consciousness. Why is it happening? This shouldn't be happening. He's got this, he's got that. It's not fair. But I don't think many of your listeners are like that, because you just wouldn't be tuned into this frequency otherwise. It's more about getting over ourselves, like, and it's building the inner strength, really, because it's not an easy journey. It is tiring. Like, you fall down, you get back up. You fall down, you get back up. I shared on my own podcast, you know, I crawl sometimes. Sometimes I lay on the floor and I'm there for days, but I always get back up and I keep on going. And that's the thing. In that, it's building strength. I often liken a lot of our journeys to being in the gym. You know, you go into the gym right now and, I don't know, you try and squat 20 kilos, you probably couldn't do it. But you start small and you work your way up, and you maybe your muscles get tired and you don't go for a few days or even a few weeks. Life gets in the way, but you go back and you keep going back. Over time, there will come a point when you will be able to squat that 20 kilos, for example. You'll find yourself squatting 25, 30, you know, whatever that thing is for you. But the point is about keep showing up. And with that, keep showing up for yourself. That is a lot of conditioning and It's that connects actually to self-love and self-worth,
Yeah.
and learning not to abandon yourself and applying that to everything, the small things, the big things, you know, all of it, and learning to be there for yourself. And often that is a complete reconditioning from the inside out at the deepest levels. And when we learn to do that, that's when it starts to ripple out into every area of your life. But again, I find that piece, that is an ongoing journey. It's something so rewarding, not just for you, but when you learn to embody that love for yourself, that care, it's not just for you. As parents, you know, that's for your children as well, because they're seeing in you how to carry themselves, how to deal with situations. It shows up in your business, you know, it shows up in what you will and you won't accept in your life, what you will tolerate and what you won't. There's just so many benefits from it, but that's a complete recalibration. And that is something that, you know, it is over and over again. And there is no mountaintop with it. I think you just keep going and you're always finding new ways. And that is also a part of soul growth.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, we try and race to that end point, don't we? But why are we trying to race to the end? Because then that's potentially, you know, the end of this human incarnation, and then the next thing for our soul. So our soul's going to have to keep going anyway. So yeah, we want to be more enjoying the moment. And I love that you talked about the, you know, just keep going, because it compounds, doesn't it? All these little things, even if like the smallest little action that you do today, over time, that little action will compound, and that's amazing. So we think that it's not good enough or big enough, but actually if you do it consistently, it's amazing. And I love that.
That is a powerful piece. And again, depending on your background, what you're working with, that may be a journey. It also, for those of us that are generators in human design, what I reflected back in what you just shared is like the mastery over time piece.
Yes.
As this is specifically for generators. So yes, we rush and we want to get to the finish line, but and we may see some result, but we see the result and then we find it falls off. It's because we're not meant to just get it. And it is meant to be something that you master over time, and you keep coming back to, and you see things differently, and you try things a different way. And again, that's the compound piece. What I find interesting is a lot of people talk about quantum leaps. And what I've been shown is that a quantum leap isn't just a magical jump from one place to another. It looks like that, but what happens is you start doing the thing and you keep on doing the thing, and then you forget what you're doing it for, and you're just doing it. And then you look up one day and you realize you're where you want to be, but actually you didn't just take this one giant leap. It was all of the small steps compounded over time. Yes, there were probably a couple of jumps, but the point is you didn't just jump completely from A to B. There were steps, and you just didn't notice. You just look up one day and you're like, oh, I'm here. I did it.
Yeah.
And it feels and looks like a quantum leap, but it's not. It's kind of like the overnight success thing, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Because, you know, sometimes it's like, well, if I could quantum leap and it was like an instant thing like that, then I'd wake up tomorrow and I'd be in, you know, 6-bedroom mansion where I can hold my retreats from. But you can quantum leap your identity, I think, and then your reality will catch up, because the reality, like the 3D world, is slower, right? But if you're embodying that person over time, and this is where that time doesn't necessarily have to be a long time, if you're embodying that person consistently, then opportunities are going to present themselves that maybe you'd have missed otherwise as well. And I think this links back into the capacity piece, that I think a lot of people will find this really beneficial, because as a human, like logically, we're like, well, of course I want that thing, and I feel I can hold that thing. I could, you know, if I am a musician, you know, I could be on I could go on tour, like I can hold that, like I'm ready for that. But if our soul's not there yet, what would you say to someone who wants to, I guess, increase their capacity, but their soul's kind of trying to catch up?
So, what, in my experience, there's two ways that we expand our capacity. It's through pain and it's through pleasure. What happens when somebody is usually in pain, in discomfort, is they're trying everything to rid themselves of the pain. Distraction, whether that be through, I don't know, scrolling on social media or binge watching Netflix or drinking, smoking, sex, shopping, whatever it is. It's about learning to sit in it. It's about going in and being there for yourself, because actually when we distract ourselves, and there's a place for distraction in life, right? Yeah. Let's not forget, we are soul human bodies, but for the most part, the distraction is the thing that takes you away. You need to go in and be there for yourself. The distraction is a form of self-abandonment, really, because you're in that moment and there's something for you to learn, and you abandon yourself every time you jump out and look for something outside of yourself to take you away from the pain. But actually, the pain is something that you can, that can expand you. That discomfort, you know, that's where that say get comfortable being uncomfortable comes from. That's where a lot of the growth happens. It's not designed to be comfortable. So when you're in that, rather than distracting yourself, take some deep breaths, come back into your body. Often what people do in stress situations is, without even realizing it, their breath starts to contract. You know, breath is key to our life. It brings you back into your body, and ask yourself, you know, what is going on here? What am I really feeling? And start to learn to go deeper with that and learn the lessons. And just one really simple thing, going back to breath, is just breathing into like your root area. So like the base of your spine and your groin area. And just imagine breathing into it and imagine it expanding. That's one piece for like a quick tip. The pleasure piece is the other thing. So a lot of people can't hold pleasure. They have, again, this is the capacity piece. They have an idea in their mind of how much pleasure is okay. But anything beyond that becomes uncomfortable. And so again, they find themselves unconsciously trying to rid themselves of pleasure. So you often hear this in people that say, you know, I was having a really good day, then I picked a random argument with my partner. Well, you did that because, you know, first of all, it's an unconscious thing, and our unconscious is responsible for running the majority of our lives. And it's just because your nervous system is uncomfortable. Again, you've got this capacity, whether it's pain or pleasure, you have a capacity. And when you hit up against that edge, or you go past it temporarily, your body, your ego is doing whatever it can. It's like in panic station. It's like, I can't handle this, it's too much. you need to reel it back in. But until you can increase your capacity, to expand your capacity, it's almost like expanding your body, expanding rather than contracting in those moments. That is how you expand your capacity, and that is how you welcome more into your life, and how you're able to hold it all without self-sabotage, without abandoning yourself. And that is a key to having it all. You need to have the capacity on the inside, because there's no point having, I see this a lot, you know, people having it all on the outside, you know, all the material things, and from the outside people are like, oh, you know, they're living a good life, and on the inside is a complete different story. It's both. And it starts with that expanding your capacity. It starts with looking at what's being presented to you in your life, whether it's through the form of pain or through the form of pleasure, or both. It's not an either or. And understanding that whatever that is for you is there. Your soul is giving you a gift, really. Doesn't feel like it, but it's a gift. And yeah, it's asking yourself those questions. Journaling is really powerful as well. I say to people, you know, just write and let it all flow out without judgment. And often in that, it's like when, have you ever, you're wondering something, and then as you start to voice it out, you answer your own question.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that on paper, and you're like, oh. Or often I'll be writing, and then I'll be asking a question or wondering something, and I can hear a whisper in my ear. to those people who aren't familiar with that whisper, that's usually the voice of your higher self or one of your spirit team. It's not you making stuff up. And that's how I receive the answers sometimes. So it's finding what works for you and understanding that this is a journey. It's not a put in a slot machine, pull the thing, and out comes your answer, and poof, everything's great. Kind of like what you were saying with the quantum leap in going, being in your mansion. And it's understanding that often it's the journey who makes us who we are. It's not about what we think, it's about what we want to achieve, but it's about the becoming, the person that you're becoming, and the growth that comes with and through that. And just really the most important thing, I believe, is coming home to yourself. And that's also what all of this is. Often things will be taken from us externally or cut off from us, not because of being mean, but they want to invite you back into yourself and your soul and your own truth, and really creating what it is that you came here for, not some half-assed version of it or some watered down version of it, but really coming into the truth of who you are and allowing that to be enough and allowing that to shine, because that's what we're here for and that's what the world needs.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And I think just going back to that capacity piece, this is where like your journaling practices and things like gratitude come into play. And I know sometimes people are like, oh, like I don't want to just keep saying thank you for like the same things over and over. But if you're experiencing something and it's pleasurable and you express gratitude for that, I always say, have one foot in gratitude, but also one foot in desire. So you're like, thank you for this moment that feels expansive and feels beautiful, and I'm ready for more. And when you say, like the capacity, it's like having a thermostat, isn't it? And I always say to people when we're working on like their finances or their money, and we have like almost like an income ceiling, which is just an invisible ceiling that they've created because they've created a thermostat. Like, this is how much money I can currently hold. And when you go above that, we then go on a spending spree because your body goes, I don't know what to do with this extra. Like, I can't hold it. So I need to get rid of it really quickly. And all we want to do is just adjust that thermostat like you would your heating in your house. If it gets too hot, your body panics and you're like, no, I'm overheating, I'm sweating, I need to cool it down. And that's just the same, isn't it, with actually receiving material things or feelings or the desires in our lives as well.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
And it's a wonderful journey, even though it doesn't always feel like a gift. What would you say for people who are perhaps unsure if they're being I normally say like redirected, but if they're coming up against their edge, if they're sort of like hitting that thermostat, how do you know whether actually it's a redirection because it's not meant for you, or it's actually an invitation for you to go deeper and actually push through?
I think that's where it comes back to reconnecting somebody with their self. Like a lot of us live outside of our bodies, and that sounds really weird, but I'm talking about on an energetic level, on that invisible stuff. And when you can invite them to come back into their body and reconnect that, what you've just given, the example you've just given, is about discernment. I can't tell somebody that. I can reflect back to them what I'm seeing, but ultimately only they know that. And here's the thing, most people already know the truth. That's not the problem. The problem is in owning that truth and facing it, because it's not what they want. So a really big one is relationships. And I've had this experience myself. Because you've been in a relationship for a certain amount of time and you've got a home together, you've built a life together, you've got a family, and that's the real sticking point, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy to stay in that situation and justify it. But when you get really honest with yourself and you say, if there's no consequences, if nothing is bad, right, or wrong. What do I already know to be true about this situation? People know the answer to that question. Whether they want to face it and deal with it or not is another question. Again, I experienced this myself. I knew my relationship was over. I knew something wasn't right, but all of the human questions came out. Where am I going to live? How am I going to support myself? I can't do that to my son. One thing I heard during this time, so this is, I'd started to, I can see now, I didn't know this at the time, I'd started to hear the voice of my soul again, started to see signs and things. And I remember going to a business networking meeting and somebody was having a completely separate conversation to me, but I happened to hear this point. So this person was married and they were in therapy, and the therapist said to them, you should never stay in a relationship for the sake of children. And it just hit. And I was like, wow, like I've never heard anybody say that. Like in my world, yes, stay and you make it work. And that is what I've been trying to do. But that line really stuck with me. And I did stick around for a bit longer, tried to make things work. My point is, I didn't move, so life moved on me. There's going to come a point you'll be given signs and you'll be given knowings and you'll hear the things and you'll know the things to do. There will come a point that if you don't act upon those things by yourself, your spirit team will intervene and they will do it for you. They will kick you up the arse, kick you up and out to make you move. It will be really fucking uncomfortable. And that's what happened with me. So I share all of that to say, you do know, admitting it, something completely different. And you know, we are wired for familiarity, because familiarity to our human mind equals safety, whether that's true or not. And it's about learning to trust that part of yourself that knows, and trust that you will always be taken care of. And again, you know, this is me 15 years in, being able to say this. Oftentimes we know things intellectually, something intellectually, and it actually being a part of who you are two very different things. So intellectually, somebody might be listening right now and they know what the thing is and they're agreeing and nodding along, but actually making that truth a part of them and acting accordingly, that may take a while. But yeah, you do know what it is. And I think that's then where the human piece needs to come in. Okay, you know, this is what I know to be true. It scares me. Admit that to yourself. Let's stop lying to ourselves, right? I'm scared. Okay, what are you scared of? Often we call out our deepest fear. Again, it takes the emphasis out of it and it brings your power back into you, because as long as something is big and scary, ultimately it has a hold over you. But when you can acknowledge that, you take back your power, and then start to look at the logical steps. So if it is a relationship, for example, okay, well, how can I move forward? You know, what might this look like? You know, the tangible things that come into it. Ultimately, to somebody listening, you're the only person that can direct you. And a lot of people try and outsource this by, you know, they go to a card reader or a healer. There's no bypassing. Might make you feel better for a while, but ultimately the buck stops with you. So working with a coach or mentor or whatever, if that was my client, I would reflect back what I'm hearing from them, but ultimately they need to make their own choice. And part of you making your own choice is also about you coming back into your own power, into your own, and owning your personal power as well, rather than keep looking outside of you and asking other people for their opinions and their input and whatever. That's a whole different conversation of stuff. But it's about coming back into yourself and your own power and owning that and learning to trust that you're going to be okay.
Absolutely. And I always find, you know, and I've done this myself a million times, whenever you're you're outsourcing and you're asking other people's opinions, it's because you don't like the answer that you already know yourself. Always,
Yeah.
always the way.
And
And yeah, it can be a bitter pill, can't it? But it's acceptance, like we said at the start.
yeah, and on that, I think a lot of people are duped into, especially when you start this journey through the portal of manifestation, for example, we're kind of duped into thinking it's supposed to be easy and it's supposed to be comfortable. So going back to what I was sharing earlier, when you come up against a friction point, you think you're doing something wrong. But actually it's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be comfortable. If we think about nature, I love reflecting stuff back to nature.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. When we think about a butterfly, it doesn't jump from being a caterpillar to a butterfly. It goes into a chrysalis. In that chrysalis, it disintegrates. So let's liken this to the human experience. You will experience many identity deaths.
Yeah.
You'll be wondering who the fuck you are. Your ego will be telling you, hold on, don't let go. And your soul says, let's go, we've got you. And you're like, no. And it's confusing, it's uncomfortable. But you have to let go, release. That is a part of it. There is no growth without that. That may be people, it may be habits, it may be an environment, whatever it looks like, it's going to be uncomfortable. And that's something that I was going to say I've never lied about, and that is true, but also I don't lie, so I don't know how else to reframe that. But I'm very honest, I'm very real. One of the things that held back for years was nobody ever talked about the shadow side of it. And in as much of the becoming, there's also an unbecoming. Like I was sharing earlier, we take on these identities and these ways of being that we think are just who we are, but actually there are ways that we've adopted to cope in life. There are coping mechanisms, whether that was when you were a child. And when I was sharing the book, It Didn't Start With You, I learned that some of the things are like they've been passed down genetically in us because they come from like your grandparent who went through a situation and made a decision, and it, you know, recoded a part of your body that was passed down to you. So there's all of these things that we think are us, but are actually not really. And it's about learning to become those, because here's the thing, we want this next level of success, whatever that looks, whatever that means to you, whatever your thing is. But the version of you that created who you are right now is not the version of you that can create and hold that next level thing. So we have to release this stuff. And in that shedding, it's uncomfortable. And no, you're not doing something wrong. And that is just a part of how it is. Some people describe it as a dark night of the soul. Some people might describe it as a reckoning. Some people might describe it as just chaos and a shitty mess. Whatever it is, it's part of the journey. And it doesn't just happen once. So this was something that way back when I thought, oh, you know, I've gone through this breakdown in my life. That's me. You know, now we start to move on. That was just phase one. And I think as well, another myth that people buy into is that they think because they are at a certain level that there's no more growth for them. That's not how it works either. You know, there are people that are multimillionaires that are not great with money. They, you know, and that is some growth work that they have to do. There are people that we see this often in the celebrity world, where people again seemingly have it all together, and then we find out that they've got a drug addiction, or they committed suicide, or whatever the thing is. This is all to say that the work never stops. And it doesn't always mean it's going to be as intensive and as hard, but it's understanding that it will always be there. And that's just because by design we're wired for growth. And this is a part of it, and it's learning to embrace that. And if this is, if it's true that we are wired for growth and we're always going to be growing, isn't it better to find out a way to walk with it and work with it rather than fighting it every time it comes up?
100%. And I think also like how eventually, like how bored would we be if we did just stop growing? Like some of
True.
us were like, oh, but it'd be so
That's
easy. Like no, you'd get bored in a lifetime. Come on, you'd get so bored.
you
And we'd
really would.
find
And
things.
if we look back at our own challenges and squeezes, they've all contributed to the person that you are today.
Mm.
And if you change it's like a recipe. You change one small ingredient of that, and you could be on a whole different trajectory in life. I was having a conversation with my son a couple of days ago. I can't remember the beginning of it, but I answered it. Oh, that was it. So I said, I didn't have the encouragement and support that you have at this stage. I was being told, go to university, do this, you should do that, da, 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 da. I'm like, what do you want to do? I support
Yeah.
you. I said, and he said, oh, I'm sorry you didn't have that support. And I was like, you don't need to be sorry. I said, because if I had, my life would have been different. I wouldn't be who I am today. And ultimately what I said to him is, you wouldn't be here because I would have made very different choices, and that would have changed everything, and I wouldn't change him for the world. And even though I've been through some crap and things I wouldn't wish on people, but I also recognize that it has all helped me to come home to myself, and it has brought me, it's who I am today. It's not the good things that have made me who I am today. It's mostly the bad stuff that has made me who I am today. And I wouldn't change that because I really like who I am.
I love that, and I hope our listeners can feel that as well. If they're either experiencing some shit at the moment, or they've been going through it, that it does make us who we are. And yeah, that's beautiful, because we want to be true to ourselves. That's the whole like nutshell of this conversation, is being true to you and coming back home to yourself, which I adore. And as you know, I have a question for you from a previous podcast guest as well, which I am going to dig out for you. You'll like this one. Okay. Are you ready? It actually just links into what we've been saying about like identities as well. So, when was the last time you realized you were the one standing in your own way? And what old story did you have to let die to move forward?
Oh my goodness.
I know.
When was the last time? It'll be in the past couple of weeks, because I'm working through something at the moment. And it's just part of the soul growth journey is also about layers. We're never given more than we can handle. We're never given more. We're never shown more than we can understand. So it's just been a really deep level of seeing that. And yeah, so it was realizing that. What was the second part of the question?
So when was it? And what old story did you have to let die to move forward?
Okay, so I'm still allowing it to die. I'm actually in it, and it's around survival. So I've been unpicking survival for years, but this is really seeing it at a deeper level, how it's coded in and how it shows up in like every area of your life. So this specific piece is connected to money and business, and it's seeing how the survival frequency has still been operating and how I was showing up in my business, the energy and the energetic identity that I was taking into certain things. So that's, there's been many identity deaths, many shifts, many times of realizing you're in your own way, even when you can't see it, right? It's like, oh, you're right in your own way because you created all this on some level. But it's really been a deepening of that, and unpicking a really, really deep level of survival coding, in how I show up, in how it's like how it's running in the background of your life. And I suppose this is the same with everything, right? But seeing it, and for me, it's easy to unpick on the high levels.
Yeah.
So it's clearing it there, but it's like picking like the little specks out, the last little things that are keeping you connected. And I share that, but I'm also very aware in that it doesn't mean to say that I'm done. Like this pattern may show up again in 5 years.
Yeah.
But it's understanding that it's the layers of it, and it's the depths that I'm able to take myself to. And the deeper you go, sometimes the harder it is to identify. And I think the more uncomfortable it is to unroot. So that's another reason. And again, that connects back to capacity, having the capacity and the maturity to be able to see that, own it, and then clear it out and unpick it. And also sometimes when you've cleared something, it doesn't automatically fill with something new.
No.
That sometimes you may be sitting in an empty space for a while, and that's really uncomfortable. Or it may be that you then have to reprogram a piece. And again, that can be really uncomfortable. So it's about learning to hold yourself down in those spaces, in those voids as well. And that's a lesson, and that's a thing. But yeah, that's an ongoing journey, but it's a frequent thing. I think this year's been very intense as well. We are in a collective 9 year in astrology. So endings, closures. I'm simultaneously personally in a 1 year. So like it's the duality of both. So it's been really interesting. So again, it's like the clearing out of the old stuff, but we're also planting new seeds. So that's interesting. But that's my long-winded answer to your question.
Gorgeous. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing as well. I know some of these questions are like deep, but they're wonderful. I love them. But yeah, that's awesome. And for anyone who wants to connect with you and explore your wonderful world, where is the best place for them to find you? Where do you hang out?
I'm at I am Jade Stoner everywhere. So that's my website. Well, apart from the app, it's www. On social, it's at I am Jade Stoner. So I'm mostly on Instagram. So feel free to follow, drop me a DM, do your thing.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you. I'll pop all your links and details in the show notes as well, but just in case anyone wants to have a little connect with you, that would be lovely. But this has been awesome as expected, and so nice to have someone who is really aligned to myself, to my listeners, and to talk about the soul stuff that sometimes we don't go too deep into, but I think is really helpful and really important. So thank you so much for your honesty, your wisdom, and for sharing. And for our beautiful listeners, we will see you next week for our next special guest. But thank you so much for tuning in. And Jade, we will see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. See you soon.
Bye.